Hey guys, how's it going? Hope you're doing well. My name is Crown, and today I'm going to read you some very interesting stories that I hope that you're gonna love. And now, without further ado, let's go! Hey everyone, it's me, Lily. I'm 16, and I want to tell you about the craziest stuff that's been happening on our street. It's usually pretty chill here, but things got really wild recently. I was sitting one day on our front porch, scrolling through my phone when Mom rolled out in her wheelchair. She's been in it since her accident a couple of years back. We were just enjoying the quiet morning, you know? Then Mrs. Thompson from next door came over. She's cool, always giving me gardening tips and so on. Morning, Lily. Morning, Sarah. She greeted us with her usual warm smile. Morning, Mrs. Thompson. I replied. Mom just nodded and smiled. Mrs. Thompson leaned in, lowering her voice. Have you heard about the new rule from the HOA? Mom says. No, what rule? They want all the houses painted in the same color scheme. Karen, the HOA president, is enforcing it strictly. That's ridiculous. We just painted the house last year. I rolled my eyes. That is so Karen. Just then, speaking of the devil, Karen walked down the street like she owned it. She's always wearing these fancy suits and acting like she's a queen or something. She said, "Good morning, everyone. I see you've heard about the new painting rule." Mom tells her, yes, we have, and we're not repainting our house. Sarah, it's for the good of the neighborhood. Uniformity is key. Our house looks fine. I won't waste money on unnecessary repainting. You're violating the HOA rules, Sarah. There will be consequences. Mrs. Thompson tried to calm things down. Karen, maybe we can discuss this? But Karen was on a roll. No, it's high time everyone followed the rules. I'll be sending a formal notice, Sarah. With that, she went off. Mom sighed and looked at me. Don't worry, Lily. We're not doing anything wrong. Mrs. Thompson says, I'll talk to some of the other neighbors, see if we can sort this out. But next day, I was helping Mom with her garden. Mom loves gardening. It's like her thing, you know? She says it makes her feel free, even in her wheelchair. We were planting some Madonna lilies, her favorite. Then out of nowhere, we heard this loud voice. That's against the HOA guidelines. Guess who was that? Yep, Karen. Your garden exceeds the allowed number of flower types. Mom just laughed. Karen, it's just a garden. Let it be. This is a violation. It's in the rule book. I whispered to my mom. Does she have anything better to do? Mom ignored Karen and kept planting. And that's when Karen started taking pictures of our garden with her phone. I said, seriously, lady? It's just flowers. Rules are rules, young lady. Maybe your mother should teach you that. Mom was getting upset now. Karen, go home. We're not doing anything wrong here. Just then, our neighbor, Mr. Sanchez, walked over. He's this really chill guy, always fixing cars and stuff. He asks, what's all the fuss about? Karen turned to him. They are violating the HOA garden rules. Looks like a nice garden to me. Well, I'll be reporting this. And off she went. After she left, Mr. Sanchez shook his head and said, don't worry about her. You have a great garden over there. Mom smiled and said thanks. I just wish she'd leave us alone. I was getting really annoyed now. Can we do something about her? She's like a dictator. Mom said, we'll figure something out. But let's not let her ruin our day. A few days after the garden showdown, I was in our living room doing some homework, and Mom was in the kitchen. And that's when we heard a knock on the door. I went to open it, and there stood Karen with this fake smile plastered on her face. Good afternoon, Lily. Is your mother home? Yeah, she's here. Mom, it's Karen. Mom came to the door not looking too thrilled. What do you want now, Karen? Karen held up this color chart. I am here to discuss the repainting of your house. I brought some color samples. We are not repainting our house, Karen. We've been through this. Sarah, you have to comply. It's for the atheistic of the neighborhood. I couldn't help but butt in. Our house looks fine. Why are you so obsessed with this? Karen ignored me and kept talking to my mom. If you don't repaint, there will be fines. It's in the HOA rules. Mom's face got all serious. Karen, look around. Not everyone can afford to just repaint their house on your whim. I'm just enforcing the rules. This is not a matter of opinion. It's a rule. I said, rules that make no sense. Our house is fine. Karen turned to me now. Lily, this is an adult conversation. But my mom sighed deeply. Karen, we're not repainting the house. End of story. Very well. You leave me no choice. She then turned and again walked away. The next week, Mrs. Thompson came to our house and we all sat down. Mrs. Thompson, looking all serious, said, I've been hearing things, Sarah. Karen's spreading rumors about you, saying you're a troublemaker and stirring up the neighborhood against you. Mom's face fell. I can't believe she's stooping this low. The next day, Mom called a neighborhood meeting at our house. She wanted to clear the air about all the rumors Karen was spreading. I helped her set up some chairs in our living room and made a bunch of snacks. Mom always says, nothing brings people together like homemade cookies. Soon our living room was filled with neighbors. Mom wheeled herself to the front. Thank you all for coming. I know there has been a lot of talk about me and the HOA. Mr. Sanchez interrupted. Sarah, we all know you're not the troublemaker here. Mom smiled at him. Thanks, Carlos. But I want everyone to hear our side. Karen's been spreading rumors that I'm refusing to follow the rules just to be difficult. Well, that is not true. I believe in keeping our neighborhood nice, but I also believe in fairness and reason. Painting our house again so soon after the last time isn't reasonable. It's a financial strain and completely unnecessary. I want to live in a neighborhood where we support and understand each other, not one where we're afraid of breaking petty rules. Mrs. Thompson stood up and said, I say we band together and talk to the HOA board. Karen can't keep bulldozing over everyone. And everyone agreed. After the meeting, Mom looked relieved, but also a bit worried. Then she said to me, I hope this helps. I gave her a hug. It will, Mom. You were awesome. But even as we were cleaning up, I couldn't shake off this uneasy feeling. Karen wasn't the type to back down easily, and I had a feeling she was going to come back at us even harder. And oh boy, was I right about that. So it was around noon and Mom and I were in the kitchen making lunch, and that's when we heard someone banging on our front door, like really loud. I looked at Mom and we both knew it had to be Karen. When I opened the door, there she was. Karen, looking angrier than I've ever seen her. I need to speak with your mother. Now. Mom rolled into the hallway. What's the problem now, Karen? You've gone too far, Sarah. Rallying the neighbors against me? Undermining my authority? I tried to intervene. Karen, it's not like that. But Karen wasn't listening. She stepped closer to Mom and said, You're going to repaint your house and you're going to stop this nonsense, or else. Mom didn't back down. Or else what, Karen? And that's when things went from bad to worse. Karen reached out and pushed Mom's wheelchair, sending her to the floor. What are you doing? I yelled. Mom yelled, Karen, that's assault. Karen seemed to realize she'd gone too far. You provoked me. Mom was trying to calm down, but I could tell she was shaken. Karen, you need to leave now. Karen, looking a bit panicked, backed away. This isn't over, she said before turning and walking away quickly. After Karen left, Mom and I sat in the kitchen trying to process what had just happened. Mom, are you okay? I'm fine, Lily. But this has gone too far. We need to take action against Karen. The next day, Mom had called the police to report what Karen did, and they said they would look into it. We were sitting in our living room still talking about what to do next, when my sister Emily stormed in. She's my big sister, about 22, and she's always been super protective of us. Mom, I just heard what happened with Karen. I can't believe she did that. Mom tried to calm her down. Emily, it's okay. The police are handling it. But Emily was raging. It's not okay. She can't get away with this. Just then, we heard someone shouting outside. We all looked out the window and saw Karen in the street arguing with Mrs. Thompson. Emily lost it. That's it. Emily, wait, Mom said. But Emily was already out the door. I followed her, worried about what she might do. Outside, Karen was saying something about enforcing the rules, and Mrs. Thompson was arguing with her. Emily walked right up to Karen. Karen, what the hell do you think you're doing? Karen turned to Emily and said, This is none of your business. You pushed my mother. That's very much my business. Your mother was being difficult. I did what was necessary. And that's when Emily really lost it. She grabbed Karen by the shoulders and shook her. You're a bully, Karen. A miserable, heartless bully. Karen tried to push Emily away, but Emily was too strong. They struggled for a moment, and then Emily swung and hit Karen, not once, but twice. Karen fell back, her face now sporting two growing black eyes. Karen was holding her face. "I'm calling the police. You'll pay for this." Emily, still breathing heavily, let me lead her back to our house. "She deserved it." She said that. Mom was waiting for us, looking worried. "Emily, what have you done?" "I'm sorry, Mom, I couldn't let her get away with it." "I know, honey, but violence isn't the answer. We'll handle this the right way." We all sat down trying to figure out what to do next. The police would be here any minute, and things were about to get a whole lot more complicated. The police arrived not long after Emily had punched Karen. Two officers came to our door, looking really serious. One of them said, "We need to speak with Emily." Emily stepped forward. "That would be me." The officers took us into the living room. They asked Emily to explain what happened. Emily told them everything, not leaving out a single detail, even the part where she hit Karen. The officer, taking notes, looked up. "You understand that assaulting someone is a serious matter?" "I do. I just lost my temper." She pushed my disabled mom. Mom added, "I reported that incident yesterday. Karen has been harassing us for weeks." The other officer, a lady, looked sympathetic. "We're taking this all into account. We'll need to speak with Karen as well." A couple of days after the police visit, we got a letter in the mail. It was from the HOA, but when we opened it, we realized it was more serious than just another complaint about house colors or gardens. It was a legal notice. Mom read it out loud. It says here that Karen is pressing charges against Emily for assault, and they are also fining us for not complying with the HOA rules. Emily said, "I'm so sorry, Mom. This is all my fault." Mom hugged her and said, "It's not your fault, sweetheart, but we need to talk to a lawyer. This is getting out of hand." The next day, we went to see a lawyer. His name was Mr. Davis, and he seemed really nice. He listened to our whole story, nodding and taking notes. After we finished, he looked pretty serious. "Well, this is a complicated situation. The assault charge is serious, but we can argue provocation, given Karen's behavior." "What about the HOA fines?" Mom asked. "HOA rules can be enforced, but they have to be reasonable. We can challenge them, especially given the circumstances." It felt a bit better having a plan, but I was still worried. This was like real legal stuff now. When we got home, Mom called Mrs. Thompson and a few other neighbors to update them. They all offered to help, saying they could be witnesses or whatever we needed. The next week was filled with lots of whispering and planning. Mom and Emily were on the phone a lot, talking to Mr. Davis, our lawyer. They were discussing our strategy for dealing with Karen's charges and the HOA fines. One evening, Mom called me into the living room. "We've decided to take legal action against Karen and the HOA." I was surprised. "Really? Like suing them?" "Yes, Mr. Davis thinks we have a strong case, especially after Karen's assault and the unreasonable HOA demands." The next day, Mom and Emily went to Mr. Davis's office to get the paperwork sorted. I had school, so I couldn't go, but I was anxious all day, wondering how it was going. When I got home, Mom and Emily were already there. Then Mom announced, "We filed a lawsuit. There will be a court date set and we will have to present our case, and so will Karen and the HOA." One afternoon, I was hanging out with my friend Zoe. We were walking our dogs when we bumped into Mr. Nelson. He's this older guy who used to be on the HOA board but retired last year. So I greeted him. "Hey, Mr. Nelson." He smiled. "Hello, Lily. I've been hearing about your family situation. Tough times, huh?" Zoe added, "It's so unfair what's happening." Mr. Nelson looked around, then leaned in closer. "You know, there's something you might find interesting about Karen." We both leaned in, super curious. "What is it?" "Karen, well, she has a bit of a history with a previous HOA president. They had some disagreements." "Disagreements?" "Yes, about the direction of the HOA. Some say she wanted more control to push her own agenda." "What kind of agenda?" "Rumors were that she wanted to make this neighborhood more exclusive. She had plans for more strict rules, higher fees, and the previous president did not agree." "So she's been trying to change things her way ever since?" "Seems like it. And it looks like she's targeting those who oppose her." We thanked Mr. Nelson for the info and hurried back home to tell Mom and Emily. When we told Mom, she said, This makes sense. It's not just about rules for Karen, it's about power. Emily added we need to let our lawyer know. This could help our case. Mom agreed. Yes, we will tell Mr. Davis. This could be important. The next day, Mom and Emily met with Mr. Davis and told him everything we learned from Mr. Nelson, and Mr. Davis seemed really interested. This could be crucial in showing Karen's motivations. I felt like we were finally getting somewhere, like we had a real chance of beating Karen at her own game. One evening, we were all in the living room. Mom was knitting, Emily was reading, and I was trying to focus on homework, but our minds were clearly elsewhere. Breaking the silence, Mom put down her knitting and said, "Girls, no matter what happens, I want you to know how proud I am of both of you." Emily looked up from her book and said, "Mom, we wouldn't be here if it wasn't for you. You've taught us to be strong." I nodded. "Yeah, Mom, you're like the toughest person I know." Mom gave a small smile. "It's not easy, but it's important, and we're all in this together." Things went quiet for a bit at least until the day of the trial finally came. We all got up super early that day. Mom was quiet, just sipping her coffee and staring out the window. Emily was pacing back and forth, looking really nervous. I was trying to eat some cereal, but my stomach was doing somersaults. At the courthouse, it felt super official and kind of intimidating. We met Mr. Davis there, and he looked really focused and assured us we're ready for this. The courtroom was packed. I saw Mr. Thompson, Mr. Jacobs, and some other neighbors there to support us. And then there was Karen, sitting across the room looking all smug and confident. The trial started and it was a blur of lawyers talking, people getting called to the stand, and lots of legal jargon. Mr. Davis was really good though. He talked about how Karen had been harassing us, about the assault on Mom, and how the HOA rules were being unfairly enforced. Then Karen's lawyer had his run. He tried to paint us as troublemakers, saying Emily's reaction was violent and uncalled for. My heart was pounding the whole time. When Mom took the stand, she talked about how we'd lived in the neighborhood for years, how we'd always tried to be good neighbors, and how Karen's behavior had escalated. Emily also testified, admitting she lost her temper, but explaining how she was defending our mom. Then Karen took the stand. She talked about the importance of rules and tried to justify her actions. But when Mr. Davis cross-examined her, he brought up the information about her wanting more control over the HOA and her disagreements with the previous president. Karen got flustered, and it seemed like she wasn't ready for that. After what felt like forever, the judge said she'd make her decision. We all waited, holding our breath. Finally, the judge came back. She said that while Emily's actions were wrong, they were provoked by Karen's aggression. She dismissed the assault charges against Emily but ordered her to do some community service. As for the HOA fines and Karen's behavior, she ruled in our favor, saying the HOA rules were being applied unfairly and that Karen had overstepped her boundaries. I almost could not believe it. We had won. Outside the courthouse, Mom hugged both of us. Mrs. Thompson and Mr. Jacobs came over to congratulate us. "You did it, Sarah." They were really happy for us. Such good people. As we walked home, I felt this huge weight lifted off our shoulders. The next few weeks were peaceful. The HOA even elected a new president, someone much more reasonable and fair. The neighborhood started feeling like the friendly, welcoming place it used to be. And as for Karen, well, she kept a low profile after the trial. I guess she realized that she couldn't bully us anymore. So that's the end of our crazy HOA saga. Thanks for following along with our story. It's been a wild ride, but I wouldn't change a thing. It made us who we are today. Stronger, closer, and ready for whatever comes next. Thank you so much for joining me today and listening to our story. I hope you enjoyed it as much as I enjoyed sharing it with you. If you liked this video, don't forget to give it a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel for more amazing stories and content. Make sure to hit the bell icon so you never miss an update. Feel free to leave your thoughts and suggestions in the comments below. I'd love to hear what you think and what stories you'd like to hear next. Until next time, keep dreaming, stay curious, and as always, keep that crown on. See you in the next video.